everyone. Welcome back to the Northern Showcase. We look forward to spending the next hour with you. I'm Maggie Monceau. I'm a Webflow developer based in Toronto with a background in film and television. In our NOCO North group, I take care of our designs and our gather space.
And I'm Jeremy Leroux, a Webflow developer and web app developer from Vancouver. On the NOCO North team, I'm the resident automations guy and runner of the streams.
Hi everyone, my name is Nancy, a former engineer and now independent web designer and Webflow developer based in Vancouver. I'm one of the newer organizers of the NOCO North team, and this is my first time hosting a showcase, so thank you so much for joining me today.
Our mission at NOCO North is twofold. First, to build a community of Canadian Webflowers and no-code enthusiasts, and second, to showcase that Canadian talent to the rest of the world. We host workshops, demos, and panel discussions on Fridays at noon Eastern in the Lodge, our gather space, and once a month, we hold the Northern Showcase here on our YouTube channel.
Well, I think people might still be coming in, so maybe we'll skip the shout out right now, but we're really excited to have Nancy do her first showcase. And today we are joined by Rene Lacroix and Beaulieu, founders of Renflow. Should I say it in French? Rene Lacroix, Beaulieu, founders of Renflow Designs, a web design studio that blends strategy, branding, and mindfulness to create meaningful digital experiences. With background in construction, retail, and finance, they took an unconventional path into web design, combining Webflow expertise with meditation, journaling, and personal development to enhance creativity and problem solving. Their holistic approach not only shapes their client work, but also helps developers and designers rethink how they build, create, and grow. Join us as we dive into their journey and explore how mindfulness can transform the creative process. Please help us welcome Rene Lacroix and Beaulieu to the Northern Showcase.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I appreciate the French shout out as well.
Yeah, maybe that was too much though.
No, it was perfect. Yeah, it was great. No, I'm looking forward to getting to know you both from this because we haven't spent any time together. So I'm really interested to see, and also the whole mindfulness aspect of things is, I think, going to be a really interesting conversation. I mean, we usually do is it snowing in your area right now? or where are you from in Canada, I guess is the usually where in Canada are you guys?
Brantford myself, been here for about 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, and I'm right now I'm in New Brunswick, so yes, it's snowing. It's absolutely snowing.
No idea. But you mentioned to me that you both actually speak French. Where did you learn that, and is that part of your background or?
Yeah, for me, born and raised in Oshawa. French is my first language. I knew French before English, and very much integral in the community there from my grandmother and family. So it's definitely been fluent French throughout my life.
Yeah, and as for me, my entire family is from New Brunswick. French. They moved in Ontario like years ago. I was born in Scarborough, and me and Rene went to French school together like our whole lives. So not like French immersion, like legit. We learned everything in French. So yeah, French is the language.
Wow.
Whatever, but yeah.
So wait, when you guys talk with each other, do you use mostly English or you just do French?
Oh,
English
always.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. They like whipped it into us when we were kids in school, but we never spoke French in like whether it's just the rebellious side of us or not. We just speak in English, right?
Yeah. Find it flows a little bit easier in everyday life as well, and did start using French a lot more in retail, but it seems to be in most application English comes pretty naturally.
We retained our French pretty good though, so which is good. It's great to have.
Yeah, I would think that is a definite plus in being able to even do business in both languages is something that my parents, I've got the French last name too, but my parents never were, or my dad was never really into teaching at home. So going through school is pretty much what I've got, which isn't horrible, but it's not conversational enough to do business in.
Right.
Anyway, Maggie and I are going to pop out, and we're going to leave it to Nancy to get to know you both.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, guys.
All right.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. We'd love to know about your backgrounds. I know that you guys know each other for a long time. Can you tell everyone here how you guys met? And yeah, go ahead.
You want to take the reins, Rene?
Yeah, for us, since grade 2, we went to school together and have remained friends ever since. We were part of the same group and sort of grew closer over the later years, especially coming into our 30s, or coming up to 30 years old. We really connected and really moved into life changes that brought us closer together. And yeah, I mean, Rick, if you want to kind of segue into your...
Yeah, I'll chime in for sure.
there.
So yeah, we've known each other a very long time.
Mhm.
You know, like you said, we started getting closer in our 30s. At some point, we kind of hit a wall where like, hey, we need to make some changes. You know, I have a background in construction. I worked in construction for 12 years. Rene worked in retail for over 10 years. And then it seems to me like around the 30-year age, people start to like, you know, rethink life. And so we really connected because we've known each other a long time, but like we weren't super close as we were in our 30s. And then we started talking about making some changes, you know, and start like working for ourselves and learning about finance, money, investing,
Mhm.
and you know, thinking about the future, right?
I
So
think we found a lot that our current careers, I guess you would call it, were not moving us forward in ways we wanted to, and connecting on that need for a real change and starting to develop and push in that direction is what really took it to a different level for us. And
obviously we weren't feeling fulfilled, you know, both of us. So like, I knew I wasn't going to do construction my whole life. You know, I'm interested in like psychology, philosophy, you know, the human body. Like there's so many things I'm interested in, and I've researched and read over the years, and I'm like, there's no way, like I'm capable of so much more. So I knew I was just gonna do construction. I hadn't moved up in there, and
Yeah.
I was like, no, I need something different. I didn't know what it was at the time, you know, but I just knew I had to go. I'm like, I'm out of here. Like started driving Uber, and I'm like, let's figure out entrepreneurship. Let's see what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
I'd also done in part of previous life in starting a business back in the day, got my diploma in small business and entrepreneurship. So there was always that need for something entrepreneurial. I've always had that itch to scratch and working for others. Like Rick said, it wasn't fulfilled, but needing and knowing what I knew in that realm, I wanted to build something. Always had that drive to build something. Wasn't quite sure what that was. But that was the push for sure.
That's such a journey from construction to retail, some financing to now you both started an agency. How was it a hard journey? Was a hard journey to transition? Like you mentioned, you weren't really happy with what you were doing in your career. Transitioning into a digital creative job now, like how did you pick web design related industry to dive in? Did you try different things to get into this, or how did that come about?
Pretty interesting segue on that, and that kind of brings in the mindfulness aspect of it all.
Mhm.
And for Rick, he had been doing it much longer than I have as part of his life, and when we come into needing that change at 30 years old or around that range, we naturally at the time I was driving back and forth from Hamilton to Whitby, so we were spending daily calls back and forth on the drive, just discussing these changes. And as he moved into the financial markets, a lot of that came with mindset building, betterment and things to be able to further, in that case, day trading, and just help the mindset as you do all those things. And as we connected, we really evolved in that space of what betterment means, how that looks in all aspects of life, and taking a note from his playbook and his wisdom from the years prior, really dove in, especially needing the changes. And that's what really brought us that much closer. And it became something that we dove in completely. And that turned into 3, 4, 5 hour Zoom calls at least once a week, as we looked at the financial markets, discussed life. Mindfulness, consciousness, anything and everything that went into that. And we really learned and expanded from reading the same books and kind of building that journey together and sort of comparing notes as we evolved. And like, what does that look like for you? How did you take that forward? And what's your understanding of these things? And that just built into an integral part of our life. And it's not something that was a hobby, but it's something that was part and parcel of that change and that needed to happen. And that inevitably led us to taking these things we've learned and trying to assimilate that into something that we could pull forward and share with others. There's so much information out there that comes at such a fast pace that it's consolidating that information and trying to help people in a way that's maybe quicker than having people dive into all these different things themselves. We're going, hey, if we can create a shortcut to streamline this information to people, what does that look like? And I think we had a very unique perspective on what that looked like, which led us to want to build a community platform that would allow that outlet to be easily accessible. And of course, never doing anything the easy way, we decided, why not build it ourselves? So from there, it turned into, well, I guess we need to learn how to build a website, build a platform, learn how to do everything, the content. Yeah. And why do it the easy way and have someone else help you when you might as well learn it all yourself? And that brought us to where we were. So we started to explore. I dove into Webflow design and everything. And prior, always had a creative itch and sketched into different things over the years, kind of got away from retail, but always had that in there. And as I dove into design, Webflow, it just became something that you're furthering your skills, always pushing yourself. And for Rick, he's always been words, assimilating information, digesting things for people and putting it in a way that just makes sense. So hence the copywriter, SEO side of things with the design developer. It really worked well together. So it brought us to saying, while we further these skills and our ultimate goal, why not make the most of it to, one, bring in cash flow and also help push the direction that we're aiming at, but help people along the way. And being the fact that we aim at betterment and mindfulness, it's why not just do that during the journey? And that spawned Renflow, which is using the skills we're learning and furthering our skills in the same time while also helping to benefit for others. But
Wow.
I know I threw a lot at you there. So
and I was going to say that you pretty much covered most of it. But I think one pivotal thing also is that we also started to embrace our creative nature, because for years, I just didn't have that, that oomph. I was searching for that, right? And then when we kind of started developing these ideas and moving into this direction, then it was like, discovered copywriting and discovered SEO, then realizing that this fits perfectly with my skill set. This is and if you would have asked me 5-10 years ago, I'm going to be a copywriter, I would have thought you're crazy. But it just so happens it aligned perfectly with who I am and how I internalize and mentalize things. So I just kind of fell into that part of it. And then Rene, he's like, hey, I used to love drawing. I used to love, design and stuff. And next thing you know, it's fell right into design and development and just absolutely loved it. And we realized, wow, this is our passion. This is something that we're very passionate about. So, in terms of the transition, piece of cake, but not really. It's a lot of work. But I mean, when you have that drive, that passion, and you're seeing all the pieces connect, all the dots connect, we're yeah, absolutely, full send. Let's do this. We're full steam ahead. And when it comes to business and building a business, you either have one of two things. You either have more time or you have more money. And then you decide, okay, well, I'm going to either invest in people to build this, or, you know, if I have more time, well, I might as well just learn it, right, if I don't have the funds. So it led us into getting into this. And then as we were started building out this website or this platform or this dream that we had, then we realized, well, hey, like, why not just do this for people and make money along the way? Because the whole point was to create a business anyways, and you know, to get that cash flow coming in, because we learned a lot through the years of like learning about investing and monetary policy and all these different things, you know, and found a lot of success there as well. And but then, you know, things started to kind of fizzle out a little bit, and it's like, hey, well, we need constant cash flow coming in, and it just made sense. Like, we're learning the skills, we're doing it, and at the same time, while we're doing this and connecting with people in this space, that's also our audience, and that's also the people we're going to need to sort of build out this dream later on anyways. So it's like, okay, this just makes sense, let's do this. And then fast forward 2 years later, here we are, we have a 2-man agency, and like, we're growing and thriving, and we've been able to apply all the stuff that we've learned the years before in terms of personal development, like meditation and all kinds of, you know, sort of like, you know, body hacks and just different things that help us get through all this crazy chaos. And it's what's also helped us to sort of like learn quickly as well, right? Because we came into this with that skill set. So in 2 years time, it's like, oh my God, how did you do that in 2 years? And remember, we also knew nothing. Like, we didn't know anything about branding and marketing. We weren't that good with social media, you know, design, development, coding. Like, what are you talking about? Right? So it just goes to show, like, you know, we had that, like, clearly that underpinning, that underlying skill set is incredibly important, and it was absolutely integral to our fast growth in the last couple of years.
That sounds amazing. I'm so happy for you too. So you mentioned it's been 2 years since you've been on this journey.
Just over 2 years.
Just
3
over
months.
2 years. Yeah. Wow. So how you mentioned that you've never been in the space before. It is entirely new. You learned a lot of different things, and also apply some of the skills that you learned previously in your career to this role at this job. How did you find your first clients? Like, that must have been really tough. Is you networking or through previous connections? How did you get those first clients to get started?
Yeah. Actually, when we first started, it was, ironically enough, my first client was the French club in Oshawa. And it was through the French community and helping them rebuild their platform, migrate from WordPress. So both allowing us to have a client, even at a lower price point, we're obviously just moving in. So even when we're starting out, getting anything to pay for your work is fantastic. But it was being able to build out a representative community platform that was proud for the heritage, because it was, again, a community that my grandmother started, but was part of the founders in the community. And being able to do that was a real privilege for sure. So that was one of our first clients. And then a couple that were word of mouth from a neighbor to someone else of my father's friends. So it was a lot of word of mouth starting out for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. I think I have a question here from Patrick from the YouTube stream.
Yes, I do.
With your partnership background, did you ever get the itch to sell what you built and start something new? So it sounds like you spoke a little bit about it with this app that you're hoping to build, and that kind of translated into building an agency. Have you built other products potentially, or tried anything else?
Today with entrepreneurship, it's the reason I went to school was when I had a shop with a buddy of mine, so an automotive shop. So that was where it spurred originally. I always had that interest, and it was, you know what, from the automotive side, how do we build this new business that makes sense? And then going to school for that was where that really pushed it. And that was prior to my years in retail. So there was a weird gap and segue between that realm of my life into 10 years retail for someone else and then coming back into it. So there's definitely the spur of ideas that come up in trying to keep it on the rails and not branch it to too many directions. So I definitely think there's an itch there to keep the reins on what you're trying to build and also not branch it to too many directions. Then we went to the financial markets after. So there's something there that you are self-employed, you're learning financial markets and how money moves and that type of thing. So to, I guess, come back to answer your question, there's definitely that itch so far. I don't think we've had the opportunity to build something up to the point of having to have that hard decision of, hey, do we sell this or build something new? I can definitely see that there's definitely an itch there and something about that segue into something else or a different product or business.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch on that too, because that's a very interesting question. Because one of the things that you kind of have to have that mindset to make your business successful to begin with, because you have to build it. Like when you have when the target is to make it so that you can sell it, you actually have to build something that can be sold, right? So you really have to think about all that infrastructure and kind of like create this thing that you can actually just hand off to someone and they can buy and they can just keep running it. So it's interesting that there's quite the correlation there in terms of like the success of the business and whether or not you want to sell it. It's kind of like irrelevant. It's like you should just always be building it in the hope of selling it, because that's what's actually going to build out into this, bigger business, bigger agency. So it's a very interesting question. As far as like building and starting new, I find that this question actually resonates with me personally, because when I look at myself in my childhood growing up, like that seems to be the case. Like it's like, hey, build something, sell it, or like build something, take it apart, build something, take it apart. So who knows? But I think for that, as far as it pertains to me, I think copywriting is I swear it's like the one thing that satisfies sort of like my inner being, because it allows me it gives me so many facets to just kind of move into, so I don't have to like change completely what I'm doing. There's so many different formats of writing and things I could write about that it totally satisfies my curiosity and sort of like that need. So very interesting question.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So then, in terms of your approach with Renflow and how you approach your business with this entrepreneurship mind, do you have particular clients that you like to serve, or are you looking for specific clients, or do you have an ideal client that you want to work with in the future, or that you're currently working with now?
Definitely an interesting question. And for us, the way we've built Renflow is with the holistic approach, and with betterment and mindfulness being part of everything we do in everyday life and business and everything there. It's really shaped how we've approached the business style of what we do, from our client relationships, how we try and achieve that, from systematic processes that allow you to push forward in a way that allows you to connect deeper and still really dial into the intuitive creativity without those blocks. As for who we try and reach, we do surrender life and events, and find that a lot of people that come into your life when you do that and practice just awareness and mindfulness and being in that moment, the people that are naturally a good fit and are supposed to be on your path lend themselves to coming across your path. So we've done stuff with life coaches, counseling business, especially more recently. So you can see that shift a little bit, lend itself naturally. As to niching down or trying to find specific clients ourselves, we haven't done that. And I think just letting that natural flow of people come into your life that need the services or that are that natural fit is the most streamlined approach to working with clients that you can really benefit the most.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that too, sorry. I mean, essentially we've been targeting small to medium-sized businesses, but as far as niching down, yeah, it's just whatever, right? Like whatever comes, if we connect with the client, then we're on board, right? And I'll do the research. I'm a copywriter, so it's like literally what I do. I'm not going to be doing the same thing for the same kind of sort of client. It could be anything, right? It could be construction, it could be a lawyer, it could be, and then I'm perfectly comfortable with that too. So, and as we grow, we're definitely hitting those bigger ticket sort of clients, and we're moving into the corporate a little more, right? And we don't mind that at all. Like, of course, like who doesn't want that? But we're definitely keeping an eye on things, and like we definitely want to maintain what we have. Like we don't just want to expand and have like, I don't know, like 50 people working for us, and all of a sudden we don't have that connection anymore with the client. It's like, so we're gonna keep building out whatever into whatever makes sense, and keeping that quality and keeping that sort of like value offer what we offer at Renflow.
Yeah, that's definitely key, keeping the essence of what Renflow is and what it stands for, that integrity of the values and people that we want working with us as well.
Yeah, of course. So we talked a bit about mindfulness, and I'm curious, how does it play into your daily work? Can you talk a bit more about what mindfulness means to you or to your business, and how you apply that to, I guess, your everyday?
For sure. Both approaches are, like I said, for mindfulness, for us, it's not just a hobby or something that we tack on as a supplement. It is very much ingrained into everything we do, from our daily lives to our business. And we both start our days with our routines, from your cold showers, brain dump journaling, breathing exercises, and meditation, and living that mindful life across the board really allows you on many ways to dial into what you're doing, be it on a personal life or in business, faster, quicker, and more direct. Like I said, that intuitive nature of what you're doing. And I think anyone that has done deep work gets like that flow state, gets the idea of what that means to tap into it. Mindfulness really does allow you to shift between those things more effortlessly, do it without sort of non-attachment in terms of holding on to things. So be it jump into a deep work session, come back out, spend time with family, or jump into something else and not have that additional noise of what's going on. Because as soon as you have that additional noise, you're holding on to things, or you're not allowing yourself to free flow. It does block creativity. It blocks that flow state and colors how your perception is to maybe the best path forward, or what you're not seeing when you're too close to it. And approaching it from that mindfulness aspect, it really allows you to see the difference between pushing forward you need to, or stepping back. And it is pretty counterintuitive in, for example, design or building or whatever you're doing. If you're too close and trying to push in a direction, sometimes the best approach is honestly to step back, reset, do a breathing exercise, something that will allow you to ground yourself back in the moment, be present, and not get lost in the emotion of what you're trying to force, and then actually get a more productive approach coming back into it. And surrendering that to that feeling, you do get those bursts of creativity. You get those aha moments, those things that come to you that you can apply much quicker. So it does sound counterintuitive when you say, I got to step back. You're like, no, I should be doing this work. I should be pushing forward. But when you can ground yourself and come back into it, that is usually the most effortless path that will actually make you more productive than just trying to push through the hard way.
That's so unique. I'm just trying to think how I can apply that to what I do. How do you specifically schedule time to have that, to practice that, or is that something you have to do when things get just too stressful, or how do you integrate that into your workflow to allow that kind of a transition?
I could take this one.
I would say go for it.
Yeah. So, because this is the thing, right? It's like when you ask, what do I do? How do I make time for this? It's like, how do you not make time for this? Like mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just like, it comes in different shapes, right? You can meditate, you can do breathing exercises, you can do grounding, you can do yoga, you can go for walks. Essentially anything that will force you to be in the moment is mindfulness, right? As far as how that how you apply that, well, I mean, start somewhere, you know, like you can literally do anything. The way that you start off your day in the morning usually dictates the day. So, I mean, I would say get ahead of it. We have morning routines, right? Like I get up, cold shower, right? I get out, journal, do a a breathing exercise and go do yoga. That's my morning. I could fit that in like the first hour of my day, you know, get up a little early, do whatever you got to do. Obviously sleep's super important, but like if you do any one of those things, like I do them all because I've been doing this for years, and they really compound, and you just get the maximum effect physically and mentally. And I would say just pick one of those things. You get up in the morning, you do that, and I'm telling you, any one of those things I mentioned will drastically change everything. It'll keep your emotions in check. It'll clear your head. And so it's like, well, how do you apply? Well, you don't. I mean, can you spend 5-10 minutes doing something? It's like you absolutely can. And in terms of like, oh, do you do it during the day? It's like, yeah. If stress builds up, like you don't know what's going to happen. Stop for 5 minutes, do a quick little breathing exercise, and you just reset. Take yourself out of a situation, you know, get yourself grounded, get yourself in the moment again. Because you know that mental stress is going to build up. It's going to sit there, but you need to get rid of that because your brain needs to work. And so if you have all this extra load on your brain, how are you going to get the work done? You're just going to keep kind of pushing through in resistance, and you're just not going to get it done. But if you pull back 15-20 minutes and come back to it, you're actually going to work effortlessly. You'll be right in the flow again. So when we're thinking also in terms of like, oh, how much time I have in the day, and it seems counterintuitive. It's like I could have been working for half an hour instead of like spending half an hour doing breathing in like a meditation or something. But it's totally not true. I promise you. Pull away for the half hour, take the 20 minutes, do it. Because when you go back, it'll be literally like effortless. You're not going to have to force anything. Things will just come to you, and you'll get into that workflow a lot faster.
I find it Tada as well. It's also something that, like you said, any of these tools work in their own right. When you compound them, it does take that momentum to a different level. But it's also something that, as you start to incorporate it regularly into your routine, there's less of a need to do it as an emergency fix or something that, okay, now I need to do it. A lot of it becomes something that you carry that momentum, so it doesn't pull you away as much to begin with. So if you get those moments where you're trying to work through a problem, you're trying to problem solve, and you're finding that there's something going on because you've done your day, or you started your routine in the morning, or do some of these things, it allows you to be grounded further throughout, despite what the circumstances in the day. But that's not to say you can't stack it on. Like there's days or moments where you're just, okay, I need to go journal. I need to go get the noise out, and you just step away, and you just brain dump, and you can feel it. Just ground yourself, and you get that pressure.
Or there's days where you just may not have that time in the morning, right? And that's okay. Like it's not like we're not perfect. This is not like a perfect science. You can't be a robot every day. You know, you can't be. Well, you can try, but it's not very good. Not a very high quality like living. But you just gotta like let go of it. It's all good. You know, life's gonna happen whether you like it or not. And but if you have some tools at your disposal that you can use, why wouldn't you use them? Why wouldn't you, like, you know, because if you're not healthy mentally, physically, like how are you going to do more work? You're just not, you know. Whereas if you do this, you're actually going to save time, because you're going to be doing things, you're going to feel great, you're going to love what you do, and you'll be able to sort of like tackle that chaos, like the chaotic lives that we all live in today's information world, right?
Yeah. That sounds so magical. Can you take me through some of these techniques that you talked about, like breathing exercises or journaling, so or meditating? Can you take me through a few of how you approach that and how you get started?
I'll go over a couple of them really quickly. The ones I think are the most effective, the ones I think that anyone can do anytime, that it's not difficult to sort of integrate into your life. And one of them is the breathing, and then the other one is journaling. Now, journaling, there's different forms of journaling, but the journaling that I do is not like, oh, you write things down, you go back and you look at it later. It's not that kind of journaling. Well, we call it it's called the brain dump or brain drain. Okay, so first thing in the morning, or not right away, but in the morning when you get up. Because like we go through very hectic lives, and we're always holding on to something. There's always noise, stress, whatever, right? So the idea behind the journaling, anyone can do this, right? Spend 15 minutes in the morning, whatever it is, you write down one page, and all you do is you just write down anything that's literally in your head. Anything. It doesn't need to make sense. If you don't know what to write that you don't know what to write. It doesn't matter. The idea here is that you're shaving off that stress. You're shaving off the surface level noise, right? So that then you can have, a quiet mind, like quite literally, like you just want to dump it. And the thing with the journaling, because this is used in like psychotherapy, right? Like people who have gone through like traumatic experiences and anything, or anything that you think was traumatic, or anything that you've been holding on to for years or for weeks or whatever it is, right? And in order to kind of get to it, you have to just shave off that surface level. So what happens is, like when you're journaling, it engages the prefrontal cortex. So then it forces you to be in the moment. So it's one of those, gets you in the moment. You're focusing on this, and while you're doing it, you're just dumping everything out of your head, right? Because when it comes to like the traumatic states, what happens is like there's a couple parts in your brain, like the hippocampus and the amygdala. They work hand in hand, and they govern emotion and memory, right? So what happens is when you're holding on to stuff, it strengthens those neurons. And the more that because the brain is neuroplastic, the more you use parts of your brain, the more connections it makes. So what happens is those parts of your brain make those connections, and it puts you in a fight or flight state. So then there's all kinds of things that happen, right? Like during those states. But a couple of the things they need to understand is that when you're in fight or flight, your body is secreting different chemicals in your body. You secrete different chemicals in your body, right, in response to it. So over time, if you're not dealing with that, you're just creating this extra load on your body. And then also, what was I going to say? Also, what happens is when you're going fight or flight, it actually disengages the prefrontal cortex. So then you can't just like sit there and do your work normal, right? So journaling just kind of like, it bypasses all that. It engages prefrontal cortex, and it allows you to dump out whatever is in your head, so that then you can function, right? So that's the journaling side of it. What was the other one again? The breathing. So breathing comes in different forms. There's all kinds of different techniques. Like I have a preferred breathing method, but I mean, if you can just start breathing, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Do whatever is easiest for you. You just need to breathe. You need oxygen. Your brain needs oxygen. Your body needs oxygen. We don't get enough of it. But the method that I use in particular is the Wim Hof method. Some people might know who Wim Hof is. They call him the Iceman. He's very popular, and he has his breathing method is like a derivative of like the Buddhist breathing method called Tamoy. So essentially, this method, the grand scheme of it is it just gets more oxygen in your body, and it regulates the pH level in your body. It removes stress. It allows you to secrete more cortisol, the stress hormone. So what I do is essentially you're doing like a controlled hyperventilation essentially, right? So that you actually get like a lot of benefit from this. So what I'll do is I'll do 30 breaths, like I'll do that 30 times, right? Okay. And you want to make sure you expand your lungs. And then then after the 30 breaths, when you exhale, and then you don't breathe in anymore. You exhale, and then you hold that breath for as long as you can. You can start off 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever you'd like, because it could be tough for some people, right? But essentially, is you're sort of like releasing all that oxygen, and then you're letting the CO2 build up in your body. And then what that does is it'll expand your blood vessels. So then what you do is then you breathe in, and then you'll hold that for 15 seconds. And then you'll breathe out again. And then that's one round, right? And then you will do that 3 times, or just do it once, like whatever you can handle. essentially. So what this does is it just because you're sort of in this hyperventilated state, your body will produce certain hormones, like I said, like cortisol, different things, and then it will change. It'll literally change. It'll affect your nervous system. It'll affect the endocrine system, right? Your body is reacting to this sort of stress that's happening, even though it's not that stressful. It's a very controlled environment that you're in, right? And then this method just gets you so much more oxygen at deeper levels, at deeper tissue in your cells, and it's been known to just reduce inflammation in the body, reduce stress. It regulates emotions, regulates nervous system. It just has so many benefits. You wouldn't believe it. It's phenomenal. But the bottom line here is just breathe. You need to breathe,
And to tack on that as well, I mean, when you're starting into the realm, one of the easiest things I like to tell people is when you're starting out, a key indicator is your physical reaction to positive or negative emotions. And when you experience positive emotions, great situations, you're open, you're expanded, like you can feel your body, like you're joyful, you're not tensed. But as soon as you have negative, fearful, stressful situation, you close down, you can actually physically feel yourself tighten up. Those things are great indicators to take that second. You can literally breathe into those things. So if you have that tensing, if you're trying to work through coding issue, if you're trying to push through something and you're finding it's tense, it's a great immediate indicator that you need to push back into it or sit back into it, and you can literally breathe into that feeling. So breathe into that tensity, release it all, and you'll find you'll recenter yourself and allow the proper thoughts or problem solving to flow back into it. I know I see the one question there from Patrick as well. You talked about less of an emergency response and more of a practice. It was an event that caused you to look for these solutions. Yeah, I got on the screen there. For us, it kind of came backwards, so to speak. The fact that we were doing these mindfulness practices and things prior to starting our agency and business, like I said, it's very integrated into what we were. So I guess it kind of was an emergency thing in terms of something's got to give, and we needed to build these practices into it. As you're starting out, it can be absolutely reactive to a situation in the day, but the momentum you get out of doing it regularly and the benefits allows you to need it less as an emergency response. So for me, I guess I would say it was more of an emergency in terms of life change. So it needed to globally be something that was worked in practice and in theory for work, because it was integral and part of it anyway. It becomes something just part and parcel. But it does allow you to really dial into different things. And I mean, one great practical application that I can think of more recently was when we set up our ClickUp. We had been using Notion since we started, really, but we're expanding our business and stuff too, and things are really taking off. So we wanted to separate out our client into ClickUp. Being what we do, I wanted to do it the hard way, and not use a template and build something that was tailored to what we want to use. But it happened to be in family weekend, the family long weekend with snow and everything that we had, and the father of 3.5-year-old. It was something that I wanted to set up over the weekend and get everything. So from learning ClickUp, setting it all up from scratch with dependencies and everything tailored to what we wanted to do, while still allowing to shift between family time, spending time with my daughter and everyone outside, without retaining all of that. And a lot of it too is soundboarding with AI to, okay, how do you set these things up? And if anyone who's played with GPT or anything like that, you can see that the rate of information that comes in is as a super high clip. So that noise feels very stuck in mind, and if you're starting to move at that fast. But those mindfulness practices allowed me, and anyone who does the practice will allow you to shift between the two without retaining one side or another. So being able to go into a deep work session for a couple hours or a few hours, then pulling back and still maintaining and just being able to be fully present, playing with your daughter out in the snow or making lunch or dinner, coming back in, it allows you to seamlessly move between those things without say going to play outside and then just be thinking about everything going on that you're trying to set up or click up or different things like that. But it is something that can be used as an emergency response and still tacked on when you find days that you need it more so. You can also do supplementals, but once you start and you can feel it, you can see when you need additionals or when you just have it as part of your routine in general, and the benefits just sustain throughout your days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll touch really quickly on that. Like for me, definitely throughout my life, there's definitely been some like peak moments where it's like, hey, I need to take care of myself. It wasn't anything specific. It just, I was always interested in just like living better and not feeling, you know, groggy all the time or whatever. Like, and then figuring out what's going on there and why I'm feeling that way and just wanting to enhance the quality of life. You know what I mean? So there definitely wasn't like, it wasn't like a, oh my God, make it or break it moment for me. I'm like, I have to change or I'm going to die. Nothing like that. But there's definitely been a couple of those things, you know, throughout my life, just like bad habits, whether it's like smoking or whatever, drinking and just not eating very good. So, I mean, over the years, it kind of just became a thing. But lately, as far as like going into Renflow and all that, it's like that stuff was already implemented years ago, you know. Now it's more of a preventative than anything. And when you stop doing those things for a couple weeks, then you're like, oh my God, like, what is this? How was I living like this before? You know, It's crazy. But also just to iterate this, when you do this daily, it compounds. So like you can go a couple weeks without doing it and you'll still feel fine. That's the beauty of it. It does compound. So that's another interesting thing I thought I'd mention.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I am going to start trying and practicing for sure. I feel like when you were demonstrating the breathing exercise, it made me want to breathe as well while you're doing it. So,
for sure.
So,
you won't regret it. That's for sure.
No, you absolutely won't. And like I said, you don't go back. You may skip some days. Don't worry about any of that. Just like let go of all that. You don't want to, you know, because the whole point of this is to like let go, right? I mean, a lot of this stuff stems from like Buddhism and meditation and all these things, but the idea is that you don't want to hold on to any of those things. You want to focus on the here and now. You don't want to think too much about the future, too much about the past. It's like what's going on here, right now, and you don't need to worry about it and let the creative juices flow.
Yeah.
And you find too, as you do it, if you're aware, like for example, I laughed the other day because it's walking away will more often than not allow you to see that inspiration or whatever come from somewhere that if you were too focused on whatever that you wouldn't see. For example, a client one the other day, it was you're stuck in the moment trying to figure something out, and it was you walk away, go for a drive, do what I need to do, and this unique colored Tesla comes by and it sparks something. You're like, okay, that, and it happened to be the accent color of our new client project, but it was something that
Yeah.
But and he loved it. So it was one of those, otherwise you're pushing and forcing, and it was, okay, you know what, walk away, step away and let it do what it's going to do. And when you have systems and processes in place, you can trust in walking away, knowing that those systems are your fail safes, will guide you through it all. And you can step back and just be aware of what that inspiration or whatever that looks like in whatever shape or form it comes. Just know that it will come, especially if you're aware enough to just sit back and let those things be.
Yeah, you just need to be aware of it. You need to just be present so that when it comes, you receive it. You're like, oh, got it. And you'll get the answers in all shapes and sizes, anywhere, anyhow. You don't know where it's going to come from. Don't worry about it. You'll get it. But we do understand though, like when there's deadlines, like we get it. It's like, oh my God, this is due tomorrow. What, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to write.
Yeah.
Back away. I know it's hard. Just back away, get away from it, and then boom, because you need to clear that out so that you can actually, your brain can even tell you what the answer is because it's buried. You know, you're too stressed, you're too tense, you're too.
Yes.
Even
Penny said too, like her daily yoga practice has made a big difference in her focus, and that's absolutely right. Like all those little tricks and tips make a huge difference. And like Rick said too, it's not something that you have to do all of these things all at the same time. any one of these things does make a high impact and a difference in what you do.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. I wasn't doing all these things, right? I started one thing.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask, because one of the things that it's some of the things that you're talking about, like, because I started with acting and whatnot back in that, so we had to be in touch with what we were feeling and whatnot. So there's a lot of that breathing, the artist way for doing like journaling and things like that,
Yes.
like just kind of that whole mind dump kind of
book.
idea with things. And yeah, I'm a little rusty on the practice of it, but the one that I was interested in is like, are there certain habits that you just kind of avoid, or context switching is another big one when you're working, right? Like jumping from one thing to the next. And in some ways, like, I guess the idea of letting go, and if that's possible, but is there like things to kind of avoid as well that don't help, that you found in your life maybe?
I haven't found anything that's personally like, okay, got to stay away from it. The biggest thing would be like that surrender and feeling the non-attachment to something. And like you said, that context switching between this is what's now, it'll come back to it, to family or whatever else. There's nothing I've found detrimental specifically. Most of the things that are aimed at that do help. It is an interesting moment though, as it is counterintuitive to know that you just try and sit into it. And that's why those practices that will allow you to seat back. And I love that you said artist way, because it's absolutely something we've been through as well. So we're familiar with the book, and it's something that anything that allows you to do that and center yourself back into it and not retain, especially in the coding and development space and everything else, there's so much noise, there's so much high frequency. And I don't know if anyone's seen, obviously, Wolf of Wall Street, but that scene where Matthew McConaughey in the start's like, it's all frequency above the ears. It's like that comes to mind when you're buried into it. But all these things just bring that back down and allow you to jump in when you need to, but pull back, knowing that it's there when you come back into it, and you'll be fresher when you can just try and sit away, move into what you need to, be present with family or whatever the task or schedule is. There's a lot less friction between moving back and forth.
Okay. And I guess the context which I'm thinking more of like in habits of like checking email, or like things like, are there things that like distract so that like you kind of like are like, no, that's not the time for that, or
Right.
You know, that kind of thing, I guess is
that what you mean, like avoiding things like that? Because I was going to say the only thing you should avoid is not doing these practice. Like you shouldn't. The only thing you should avoid is not doing these practices. But essentially, that comes with practice. And like obviously, you need to build discipline for those things. Like to not do this, to not do that. Instead of focusing on what not to do, just like implement things in place. Because like the thing I found with building habits in particular is like you can't just remove things and then put something in place. You have to build the habit first, and then the other thing will just fall off. And that's the like in terms of my success with building habits, because I know that's definitely a more difficult thing, but it requires practice, a little bit of compounding. But yeah, I would just like kind of reframe it, and instead of trying to avoid something, just like put something in place that you want, that you know is going to be beneficial, and then it just will put you in a better state, and then everything, like I said, everything just becomes easier. So then you can just take those things out, and you already have something in place, or it'll just be easier. And sometimes, honestly, it just happens naturally. Like sometimes if you're in a good state, you just need to think, this isn't good. I have to start changing this. And sometimes you don't need to do anything after that to actually put the structure in place. It's interesting.
Yeah. But to more specifically answer per say email or jumping back and forth, I do like to at least try and set blocks of time, like anyone time blocking, or at least windows where, okay, do some email answering, do some social media, whatever it is. Sure. Distractions definitely, as you know, it takes a while to get back into the task you were doing. There's some points you can't avoid that. Some days there's an email that comes in that you got to answer, that you got to do. So setting focused focuses on your phone or whatever it is, to be able to block out any unnecessary noise is definitely beneficial. But these practices also help reduce the effect that those things have if you do need to jump in or if you need to switch over. So if you can help it, absolutely avoid switching back and forth. But multifaceted business is always something that's trying to vie for your attention. Practices help minimize the effect of what that is, then jumping back in, coding, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and then when you have a difficulty switching, it's like, oh, okay, well, let me just take 5 minutes to do a breathing, and then it's like, then it just makes the switching a lot easier. Because like one thing I like doing is depending on the day, like, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like we're not perfect. Your days don't go perfectly. Nothing goes perfect. Nothing goes as planned usually. So like example, before coming on a call here, if I didn't do my routine or whatever, I'm not feeling nervous, whatever it is, just do a quick breathing session. Like, can you take a few minutes in between? It's like, if you can take a few minutes in between the next sort of like environment before putting yourself in that environment, if you can do something like that, or even sometimes just like turn everything off, 2 minutes, just close your eyes, 2 minutes. Those things have major impact. You don't need to sit there for like a 15-20 minute meditation session. It's that easy. You just have to do it, and it compounds and it gets easier. And then you don't need to worry about what if this happens? What do I do here? It's like, just do it. Just do it, and then you'll get your answer. It just makes life easier.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. This has been fascinating because I think, and I think so many people have benefited from just being your openness about this topic and whatnot, because it's not something that we've even discussed before. So it's very cool. So thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to chat about it here. It's
a really interesting one. I feel like I could.
We love this stuff.
You guys, talk about. Oh shit! Am I? Yeah. Sorry. I could keep like listening to the two of you talk about mindfulness for another hour. It's interesting. It's like by far the most relaxing Northern Showcase.
Right? What do you know? Must be in the moment or something.
Well, and some of those suggestions are easy to implement. They are so applicable to developers and designers. So hopefully some of the people that are listening to this Northern Showcase will be able to implement some of those smaller changes or the big ones, or do a big change. But we're almost at time now, and maybe we'll do one last smaller question before we close this showcase. But we're just wondering, so that goes with that last question as well. What's coming up for Renflow Design? Do you see other opportunities opening up, expanding on Renflow Design, and what's in the future for you guys?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, we were seeing sort of fruits of labor over the past 2 years really start to take off. And what went from get the next client, the usual grind of solopreneurs or whatever you want to call it there, it's really come all to fruition all at once. The last month and a half has been insane. And I mentioned ClickUp, and setting that up was sort of writing on the wall, seeing the things coming down the pipeline. So I think we're going to look at collaborating, bringing people on board as collaborative freelancers and different things to allow us to handle bigger project loads or more things at once as they come down. I mean, share the love. I mean, in the community, right? It's helping each other up. And if there's something that goes, hey, we have a great developer or someone else and looking for an opportunity to collaborate on a project, I think that's the next biggest thing that we're seeing right now. So as we expand, we want to do that. Start working with some other great people. There's so many amazing people in the space. I mean, we're newer to it that you look at someone like you guys and developers and designers. Every time we chat, you go like, wow, like there is some incredibly talented people that would be a treat and a pleasure to work with. And if we can offer anything to anyone else as a collaboration and an opportunity, it's sharing that love and spreading that around to others for sure.
Well, that is a great segue. So I'm going to pop some links on here, the whole scrolling thing, but what's the best way of getting a hold of you?
Through our website, renflowdesigns.com, email hello@renflowdesigns.com, any of one of our socials, typically Renflow Designs will pull them up, Instagram, Twitter.
You can DM us anywhere, like we'll get to you right away. Like
for sure.
You can look up Rene, Lacroix, Rick, Beaulieu, whatever. Just DM, find one of them, whatever you prefer. Message us. We'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Excellent. That brings us to the end of our 24th or 25th. I don't know if that was
24th, I think.
24th Northern Showcase. I would like to thank you all for joining us and remind you to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us in the NOCO North Lodge and in person for our upcoming events. Actually, this month is all online and it's a bit of a quiet month, but next Friday we have a lodge hangout open to anyone. The weekend, the Friday after, we have a Francophone hangout. If you are Francophone and would like to nerd out about no-code, low-code, Webflow in French. April 18th, we have no event. It's Good Friday. Most people will be at their cottages in Canada. And April 25th, we have another Northern Showcase with Chris Abra, led by Jeremy.
And you can visit our website at noconorth.com, sign up for our mailing list to receive all of our latest updates. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And join us Fridays in the Lodge, our cool gather space for our Lodge Hangouts, which are open to everyone. Until next time, thanks and bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming.